Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today. If you're a focused learner, someone looking to communicate with crystal clear precision, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're mastering the art of articulation. We're going to vastly expand your vocabulary and literally transform how you express yourself. Words are incredibly powerful tools, right? And the more specific we can be, the better we connect with the world around us.
So here's the deal. You need to stop saying speak. Seriously, just drop it from your everyday vocabulary as your default word. Native English speakers and, frankly, masterful communicators, they just don't rely on this flat, generic verb to get their point across. The word speak is honestly just a placeholder. Sure, it tells us sound is coming out of someone's mouth, but it gives us absolutely zero flavor, zero emotion, and zero psychological context.
Which brings me to a question. Do you want to sound like a native English speaker? Do you want to paint a vivid picture in the mind of your listener every single time you open your mouth? If you're nodding yes, this explainer is going to be your ultimate tool for achieving that highly descriptive, nuanced communication. Okay, let's dive into this.
Section 1, Volume 0, Quiet Words. Let's get into it.
Now, for these next few words, I'm actually dropping my volume way down because this category is all about quiet, subtle, and honestly, sometimes hidden communication. Imagine a volume scale from 0 to 100. Normal speech sits right there in the middle at a comfortable 50. But right now, we're starting way down at the bottom, hovering right around a 10. These are the words you pull out when you deliberately do not want the whole room to hear you. Our very first word is whisper. Think about it. When she whispered the secret in his ear, she created instant intimacy. You don't use this word for an everyday chat. You whisper when you're sharing a closely guarded secret, or maybe you're in a super quiet place like a library, and you need to pull the listener right into your personal space. It's breathy, it's soft, and it forces the other person to lean in just to catch what you're saying.
Next up, we have mutter. When he muttered something under his breath, he was signaling this really subtle annoyance or frustration. Muttering has a very specific kind of gritty psychological flavor to it. When someone mutters, they're usually airing passive-aggressive complaints, or maybe voicing private thoughts they just aren't confident enough to say out loud to anyone else. It's that low, rumbling sound you make to yourself after sitting through a terribly long meeting.
And then there's mumbling. If someone ever tells you to stop mumbling and speak more clearly, well, they're calling out the absolute enemy of articulation. Mumbling implies unclear, messy speech, where all the words just sort of mush together. But honestly, the biggest problem is that it destroys your credibility. It makes a person seem unconfident, unprepared, or even untrustworthy, simply because they aren't opening their mouth enough to let the sounds form properly. So let's quickly lock these in before moving on. Our quiet words are whisper, mutter, and mumble. Whisper for intimate secrets, mutter for those passive-aggressive complaints, and mumble for unclear, unconfident speech. Really internalize these differences, guys, because we are about to turn the dial all the way up in the complete opposite direction. Section 2, Volume Max, Loud Words. All right, welcome to Volume Max. You can probably tell how dramatically my voice has to project right now. We are definitely no longer keeping things to ourselves. Now, we are making absolutely sure that everyone in our vicinity can hear exactly what we're saying. We just crank that dial all the way up past normal speech, blasting straight to the maximum limit of 100. Let's explore the verbs that live up here in the red zone. First up in the loud room is shout. Imagine someone shouting across a playground. It's highly practical, really. It doesn't necessarily mean you're angry or upset. It just means there's physical space between you and your listener. Or maybe there's background noise you have to cut through. You're simply using sheer volume as a tool to bridge a physical gap. Now contrast that with the word yell. If he yelled for help from the window, the psychology of the scene completely changes. While yelling is obviously also loud, it almost always carries a heavy sense of urgency, high emotion, distress, or even anger. You shout to a friend across the street to say, hey, but you yell when there is an absolute emergency or you're in a heated argument. And that brings us to the absolute peak of our volume scale, roar. Picture an intense, fiery coach commanding a sports field under the Friday night lights. Roaring emphasizes this sheer, booming, almost animalistic power. It is a massive, deep sound that instantly commands authority and raw attention from everyone around. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast. Compare the impact of these two words. Choosing between a volume 0 word like whispered and a volume 100 word like roared completely changes the story. You don't even need to describe the setting or the mood of the characters. The verb is doing all the heavy emotional lifting for you. And honestly, that is the true power of highly specific vocabulary.
Section 3. Formal and structured speaking.
Okay, let's bring our volume back down to a nice, highly professional tone. These are elegant words for formal settings, absolutely perfect when someone is delivering information to an audience. Our first word here is announce. When he announced the winner on stage, he was sharing new information publicly. Next is declare. If she declared her decision to the team, well, the impact is much stronger, right? It's definitive. It commands authority. And finally, we have utter. Saying he didn't utter a single word all evening is a fantastic, slightly dramatic way to emphasize total silence.
Let's keep going with our formal verbs. Narrate. When she narrated the whole story beautifully, she was actively guiding her listener through a carefully structured sequence of events. Then we have lecture. The professor lectured for 2 full hours. This is educational, instructional speaking, and it's usually just a one-way street. And finally, articulate. When he articulated his ideas clearly and confidently, he hit on the exact goal of this explainer. To articulate means to express your thoughts with absolute clarity and precision. That's what we're going for.
Section 4. Casual and negative speaking.
All right, let's loosen things up a bit. I'm taking on a much more relaxed tone here because we're focusing on casual interactions and everyday habits. First up in this laid-back category is chat. When we chatted for over an hour on the phone, notice how friendly and warm that sounds? I mean, you don't lecture your best friend. You chat with them. It implies a light, easygoing, and completely informal exchange of words. Next is converse. Saying they conversed in French the whole evening still implies a casual exchange of ideas back and forth, but it sounds just a little more elevated and intellectual than simply chatting. It implies a slightly deeper or more sustained dialogue where ideas are actively being explored and shared. And we'll wrap up our vocabulary list today with the word ramble. Saying she rambled on without getting to the point brilliantly illustrates a pretty negative speaking habit. When someone rambles, they're just speaking endlessly without any clear focus or direction. They're taking you on a verbal journey with literally no destination in sight. It is pretty much the exact opposite of being articulate. So we've covered the quiet, the loud, the formal, and the casual. We have officially replaced the generic word speak with 15 highly descriptive power words. But before we go, I want to leave you with a question to really reflect on. Are you a whisperer or a yeller? What is your default communication style? And more importantly, which of these new words are you going to use tomorrow to better articulate your world? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you enjoyed upgrading your verbs today, you are going to absolutely love what we have in store for you next. Coming next week, we are diving deep into the mind with 16 synonyms for think. We're going to explore the fascinating differences between pondering, analyzing, and daydreaming. I honestly can't wait to share it with you. So until then, keep practicing, keep articulating, and I will see you next time.